Hello, coaches! Welcome back to another episode of Coach Better Spotlight. Today, CLINT and I are chatting with James MacDonald, Senior Vice President of Education at GEMS Education. CLINT and I worked with James when he was head of school at Yokohama International School in Japan, and I was fortunate to work with him again when he was head of school at NIST here in Bangkok. Today's conversation explores the different elements of coaching that are essential to be an effective leader, and how your coaching expertise can help make you a better leader. In the full-length podcast episode, we also talk about when to and when not to invest in coaching and the different school environments that are the best fit to create a coaching culture. You can listen to that episode wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoy any part of this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more conversations like this, please subscribe to our channel and click the notifications bell to find out every time we release a new episode. Remember, you can also listen to the full Coach Better episode wherever you get your podcasts. We are passionate about the impact coaching can have on student learning, school culture, and teacher professional growth, and we want to help you coach better. We've got some great opportunities for more learning after today's conversation, so stick around all the way to the end. All right, welcome back to another episode of Coach Better. Today, CLINT and I are excited to be joined by James MacDonald. James, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Good to see you again, Kim and
Yes.
CLINT. Yeah.
It's so nice for us all three to be like virtually in the same room together because we all used to work together in Yokohama, which is nice to be all back together again. James, can you start us off by telling us a little bit about your education experience?
Well, yeah, it depends how far back I'm supposed to go. But I started my career, international career, actually in the realm of IT in Yokohama, Japan. I was an IT director. And then I left there. I was in Singapore for a little bit, the Canadian school, then back to Japan. And I stayed at Yokohama International School for a total of another 8 years and eventually left there as head of school, where we got to work together. And then off to NIST in Bangkok, where I was also head of school. And now I work for a big education company in the Middle East, specifically based out of Dubai, which is called GEMS Education. And I work with all our US and IB schools here. And so I'm an educational leader amongst a cluster of schools. So.
And because of that, I think the way that you see coaching and how coaching can be implemented in a school, you have a wide variety of experience, right? Not just in international schools, being located just the head of school, but now also this like overview look that you have with GEMS. So tell us a little bit about your perspective on coaching and what the purpose of it is in schools and how you think it works, just like give us a general bit of an overview on that.
Well, I think when we were talking about coaching, we almost want to separate the role because now it's a job title and it could be thought of as really a skill set. And so I probably would address it more through the skill set, even though some individuals will have that formal title. I would think in almost all situations, particularly with leadership, that coaching is sort of a vital skill set to have nowadays. But the role in which this coaching skill set, I think, plays such a critical component in the success of our schools is that if we look at what types of leaders we need nowadays, we really need the type of leaders that aren't necessarily just focusing on that management side where we're going to tell people what to do. You want leaders in school that are able to inspire, talk about the why we do different things. If we are trying to move people in a certain direction, build them around a vision, you can't really get there through compliance. And that's very old school thinking. But how you get people to move in the same direction and to unify them is almost always through relationships. It's through persuasion. It's through talking and socializing ideas. The skills for doing that in a lot of ways could be described as coaching. Right? There's other things around it, of course. But if you're a highly skilled coach, and again, slightly different definitions of what this would be, but chances are you're going to be quite effective as a leader in a school in galvanizing support for different initiatives, in taking care of people to a point in which they're going to want to follow you. right? To be able to have difficult conversations, but do it in a way that's not necessarily that difficult for the person, so you can keep the community together. There's a lot of ways in which coaching skills permeate successful organizations, and great leaders, I think nowadays, more and more show great coaching skills and have formally developed those.
We spent a lot of time speaking with coaches, in how they work with teachers, and it always comes down to kind of the same 3 or 4 things. It's about building relationships. It's about having that rapport. It's about being trustworthy. And when I hear you talk about it in a leadership sense, I think that is the type of leader that I want to work with. Someone who can make that connection with me as an individual, maybe share their vision of where the school is going, or involve me in helping to realize that vision and actualize that vision, and then working together to get there. And, when you put it in those terms, I think you're right. I think some of the best leaders that I have worked with have had that kind of small c coaching, right? Coaching as a verb rather than coach as a noun. That small c coaching background or ethos to how they see work, right? Because you're right, not one person is going to lift an organization, especially as large as GEMS, on their shoulders and go, we're going to make this better. It's how do we get everybody going in the same direction, pulling the same rope, with the same excitement and intensity, so that we as an organization grow.
I think that's very well put. The one thing we were touching base just briefly before we pressed record on the podcast, and this notion that one thing I heard years ago was that a lot of leaders in schools tended to come from, say, PE backgrounds, where they were used to putting together schedules and managing different systems. And those sorts of skills were really sought after in the previous decades. I've got a bit of a bias because I've got an IT background, but I always thought that was really good preparation for leadership, because you were often dealing with people in highly emotional situations where their printer didn't work or their hard drive just failed. And even if you don't have a solution, you can make them feel a bit better at the end of it. And you had a technical but a very personable side to it. And I thought that was great preparation for me moving into leadership positions and trying to balance between those two perspectives. But one thing I've really noticed, and especially in my role now, because I work between so many different heads of schools and senior leadership teams, is quite a difference in people's capability and capacity based upon their skills as coaches. And some of it's innate, but many of the most effective leaders we have in our network have been formally trained in things like cognitive coaching. And so they're not coming out with the big C to be doing that on the noun as a full-time job. But my gosh, they do it full-time because they're just so effective in their roles, and they've got a way of phrasing different things, of acknowledging some of the emotion in the room and guiding a conversation in a way that people are going to get on board. And it's really almost magical to watch sometimes. I can think of one head of school in particular who is taking cognitive coaching for quite a number of years, and seeing her with a parent audience that was really upset about some issues, and the way she could direct the energy in the room was just masterful. And there's no way she could have done that if she wasn't a trained coach. It was just one of the best examples I could see of how a leader can use those skills to accomplish far more than just what you might traditionally think of as a coaching role in a school.
So do you have the opportunity to coach your school leaders in being coaches, or is that something that you guys have thought about, or how do you help them develop those skills or think about developing those skills? Like, what is your responsibility to help coach those coaches?
Well, there's a big team that we have here, and one offshoot is that we have a professional development organization attached to GEMS. And so within there, we have routes for people to develop some of their coaching skills. Many of the individuals involved, though, will look to do this almost privately within their own remit for some of this. But we will also have various professional development opportunities where people are able to practice and refine some of these skills. Sometimes it's around sort of coaching with communications more generally. Maybe it's under that guise. But there is opportunities that we have here for allowing our leaders to develop, not just through the coaching skills, but in other ways too. And one of the ways that's most effective to learn, though, is just on the job. And one of the benefits of being with an organization like GEMS is we have peers. We have people we work alongside of who are doing the same jobs we are. And in many leadership positions, that's unusual. If you look in a school, most heads of schools don't have anybody else in the organization with their same job. We do. And so we have a lot of different connections between our heads of schools where they can talk to each other, they can learn from each other. And so I'm part of that fabric.
I want to go back to the coaching skills that you think are so effective and useful in school leaders that you're seeing now. Can you tell us a little bit about what specifically are you talking about when you're mentioning these skills that make effective leaders? I know you've talked about building rapport and relationships and helping get everyone kind of going along the same path. Are there any specific examples you can point to or specific skills that you think this is the skill set that makes up an essential set of coaching skills for an effective leader today?
One thing we talk about, and it's this vague sort of nebulous term, but EQ. Can you really be a good coach if you don't have a high degree of EQ? It's pretty hard, right? But you're really effective leaders, particularly in a school where it's all about relationships and all about people. You can see how someone with that natural EQ can amplify that through coaching and through some of the skills. So one turn of phrase that I'm always so impressed with is, maybe it's not just one turn of phrase, but it's the ability to acknowledge some of the emotions in the room and start there. And so I've noticed with some of our best trained coaches who are in leadership positions, they're in a difficult situation, and rather than trying to go back and forth and possibly amplify something, they will start by acknowledging some of the emotions people are feeling and their perspectives on it. Basic stuff, right? But when you're in a situation that could be kind of intense, that could be rather hard, maybe it's a parent that's quite emotional about something, by just pausing, taking a moment, acknowledging what the other person is feeling, asking for some clarification. So often you've reduced 50% of the tension in the room just through these little steps. And so it's not just one thing, it's that full package of being able to connect with people in the right way. The other thing that I would add, when we're talking about, say, moving a school along with a vision or having people that can connect with other individuals in a beneficial way, that whole idea of constructivism, that people construct their own knowledge. And what a coach is good at is not trying to put other thoughts in people's heads, but providing an architecture for them to develop their own thinking around a matter, to reframe something and just, within Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, a good coach will stretch somebody to think about something in a fresh way. And that can often be in situations where you wouldn't think it's necessarily a coaching conversation, like when a parent's coming in because they're upset because their child's been disciplined in a certain way. But the next thing you know, through a highly skilled coach, you've worked with that parent in a way that's not going to be adversarial, but you're working alongside them. So it's a bit of a roundabout answer, but I think there's so many ways in which these skills can manifest themselves. It's really hard to just summarize in one or two because it's a package. It's about being able to take a situation and modify your approach based upon that situation and do it in a way that works for that person on the other side of the table and not just on your own perspective, because you really are putting yourself in their shoes. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It does. And I think about some of the parent meetings that I've had with heads of schools or with principals that have been contentious. And I think about what you were saying in terms of high degree of emotional intelligence and acknowledging the emotion in the room. And probably, 80-90% of the time, they haven't done that. It's more about confrontation and about I'm right, no, I'm right, and who's wrong, rather than we're building towards a solution. So I really can associate with that whole importance of that, and we've all been in situations with parents or with teachers where you're standing in front of them and telling them things that they may not agree with or they may not be sure about. And, you can do it a good way and you can do it a not so good way. And I think it's a really good lesson for anybody who's listening that is an aspiring leader or who does work in those difficult conversations is, think about those coaching skills as you're working with large groups as well and how they can help make a situation better for sure.
And I think when you talk about that element, about taking any situation and modifying your approach based on the other person's perspective to kind of smooth things out and have that productive conversation, combined with the emotional intelligence and the constructivism And then that together with understanding, like building quality relationships and the importance of every conversation you have being part of a pathway towards an end goal that you're trying to get to.
Yep.
To me, those are like, if you were going to list the skills that make an effective school leader, like from the angle of coaching, those would be the skills that I would put in there. Because I think you put all of those things together and suddenly you have, I don't want to use the word tribe, but you have that feeling of like, we're all a team, we're all together, we're all on the same side. And the person who's helping us get there understands us as individuals because we have these individual relationships and can understand us in a group environment and can help us kind of stay on track. So I think those are the key elements of being a good leader, right? You talked about inspiring people and getting everyone moving forward. That's how you do it.
One thing about this podcast, I think people should just listen to you guys. You articulate these things so much better than I can. Yeah. But very, very well put. Yeah.
I'm also thinking about if you do any of the cognitive coaching or the adaptive schools training, they talk about the difference between cognitive conflict and emotional conflict. And cognitive conflict is something that we should be encouraging. It means that we're thinking about things and we're able to talk about it. We're passionate about something, but we can think about it rationally. Where sometimes an emotional conflict, we're not rational in how we're presenting our ideas. And I think I'm thinking about as a leader, you said earlier, this whole constructivist point of view is providing an architecture for your staff or for the people at your school to think about things in a new way. Sometimes as a leader, I would think that you also want to put forward a grand vision, or you want to help develop a grand vision of where we want this school to go, right? That's part of that educational leadership, that visionary leadership of that senior management team. But it's doing it in a way that encourages that cognitive conflict so that people can disagree and ask questions and kind of nut their way around it themselves, but not that emotional conflict of, no, I'm not doing that because it scares me, or I'm afraid of change, or I just don't like where this is going out of a fear base. Took me a while to kind of work that through in my head as you were saying that, but when I remember those two concepts, it's like, yes, we want that cognitive, not that emotional conflict.
Yeah, what a good distinction. Yeah, and psychological safety, right? All good teams have psychological safety.
That's right.
If you don't have that, you're not going to function as a team. So that's what coaching can do, though, is create that environment where there's a safety.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy today's episode? Then you will love the Coach Microcredential program. We know because our current participants are always sharing their feedback with us, and we ask them to share their experiences with you. Each week, we'll be sharing a new voice from inside the cohort of the coach so you can get a participant's perspective on what will make the program just right for you.
I'd really advise anyone interested in taking the coach to take the plunge and go for it. I really love the course because having Diana as a mentor is extremely helpful for me being a coach on my own in my school. And so now I feel like I have a built-in support network through the course. One of the other concerns I have is juggling full-time work with the course, and the coach is such a flexible option. You can set your own schedule, you can reorder units, you can be behind, and they are nothing but supportive of you and really quick to reply to questions and emails, and it's just a really great opportunity to grow as a professional and develop as a coach.
This is just one of the voices from our current The Coach cohort. Here's what a few others have to say.
So I'd highly recommend it. I would definitely suggest you try and join to really help you develop your professional coaching skills.
So I highly recommend it.
So do it.
So I say go for it. Definitely take the coach. I couldn't recommend it more.
But overall, this course is fantastic because it's made me feel awesome. It's made me feel excited for my future.
If I were to give any piece of advice or message to future cohort members, it is to take the course. If you are on the fence, please take it.
As you can see, this micro-credential is for all educators, not just coaches, because you develop the coaching skills you can use in all aspects of your practice. You don't have to be a coach to have a coaching conversation with a student, a fellow colleague, a school leader, or even a parent. When you're ready to learn more about the coach, click on the link below or reach out to us at Eduro Learning on any of our social media platforms. Registration for our next cohort opens soon. Don't miss it. Expand your professional learning network, dive deep into 26 weeks of curated coaching content, and get your own private mentor for an entire academic year. We can't wait to work with you. Are you ready to take your coaching skills to the next level? Join the next cohort of The Coach and make it happen.